Much more can be found at townhall.com. While much of the U.S. is watching politics, the dangerous leader in North Korea wants his share of attention. Here's Connie Lawn.
North Korea has put its military on high alert. Its leader, Kim Jong-un, says it must be ready to use its nuclear weapons at any time because of the West's ferocious hostility and gangster sanctions. Much of the world imposed sanctions after North Korea's nuclear and missile tests. The U.S. and some allies have moved warships closer to North Korea if they are needed for defense. Connie Lawn reporting from Washington.
And the Vatican says Pope Francis was shocked and profoundly saddened by a murderous attack at a home for the elderly in southern Yemen that killed 16 people, including 4 nuns. In a condolence message, the Vatican Secretary of State says the pontiff prays that this pointless slaughter will awaken consciousness, lead to a change of heart, and inspire all parties to lay down their arms. More analysis on this story and much more can be found at townhall.com.
Are you worried about losing your home to foreclosure? If you've been threatened with foreclosure or received legal papers from your bank, you have approximately 30 days to respond. If you do not respond, you could lose your home. You have rights. Act now to protect your rights. You can stay in your home. Many times you can even modify your loan. The bottom line is you can get past this, but you must act right now. If you've been served by your bank and you're worried about losing your home to foreclosure, now is the time to fight back and save your home. Time is limited, so call the professionals at National Foreclosure Defense right now.
800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. 800-515-6309. That number again is 800-515-6309.
Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 Eastern. It's Wines du Jour on CRN with our very own Les Kincaid from Las Vegas. What's the show about, Les?
Well, every week we do something very unique. We bring in 3 wines from a particular winery, and we have a group of local people come to an upscale restaurant. We taste the food from the restaurant to pair with each one of those wines, and we have a great time doing it. We talk about the wines, we talk about the food, talk about the restaurant, and, of course, that's about it.
All on CRN. Don't miss it.
Welcome to Divine Love Talk with Dr. Parthenia Grant, where we talk about health, well-being, and the love of the divine that exists in all of us. Now, here's your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant.
Okay, I have an exciting show lined up for you today with my co-host, Kim Michaels. We are going to be talking about his new book, The Mystical Initiations of Intention. It's all about the path to self-mastery. So all of those out there on the spiritual path who are trying to master your ego and all of your fears, this is the book to read over and over. Or if you are one of those auditory learners, I would suggest getting the audio files. My co-host, Kim Michaels, is joining me. Welcome, Kim Michaels.
Thank you.
Okay, so Kim, this book is pretty amazing, and I was thinking about the synchronicity of how, with this book, it's covering everything that I've been working on diligently, and it's covering it in a way that I'm able to look into that struggle, and I was literally able to make some major breakthroughs while listening to the audio file on a long drive back and forth to San Diego. And it wasn't the first time that I had listened to the audio files, but you know how sometimes you just have to be in that place where you are really ready, willing, and able, or you've made a recent breakthrough and then you can hear it with new ears. That's how I was hearing it over the past couple of days. And I'm so happy that you could join us today to talk about this book because it's a wealth of information. So first, for those of you out there who don't know anything about this whole mystical initiation series, Kim, I want to open up with, I thought you wrote a very good synopsis of what this book is about. So I want to cover that right quick, that the books in this Path to Self-Mastery series present a set of mystical and practical initiations that are designed specifically to raise your consciousness and unlock your creative potential. And I want the audience to know that this is the 4th book in this series of 7 books. Is that correct, Kim?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so I would suggest that you start with the first 3 books. So, Kim, what's the name of the first book so that, the audience can get up? Because you got...
Well, if people are new to Ascended Master teachings, the book to start with is The Power of Self.
Oh, got it. Okay, so let's start there.
Because it introduces the whole concept of these levels of initiation under the spiritual rays.
Okay, so I would suggest that, and Kim is definitely saying that you should start with his book, The Power of Self, because if you go to Transcendence Toolbox or even to Amazon.com, Kim has over 40 books and you could get lost trying to figure out where to start. So start there. And then for those of you who are on a fast track to self-mastery, I know a lot of you out there are doing all kinds of work to raise your consciousness, then the first book in this series, the 7-book series on the 7 rays, Kim, would be what?
The Creative Power Within.
The Creative Power Within would be the first book, and then that one is covering the first ray, which is the ray of will and power, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, I've done all of them, and I know how important it is to surrender your will to the will of the divine, and that book was very, very helpful for me in terms of just saying, okay, I don't have to do all this by myself. I can surrender and get some help and some peace of mind in that surrender. And the second book is covering the second ray, which is, if you would give the title.
The Mystical Initiations of Wisdom.
Okay, so the second ray is on wisdom, and Lord knows we could use a bit of that.
Yeah.
So that's an amazing book. And the third one was last year, which was the Mystical Initiations of Love. And we did several shows on that because I just think for everybody, opening up the heart chakra, in particular men, that's an important book to really just go over and over and over. And to help men in that struggle to trust the divine feminine and open up their hearts to giving and receiving love with no attachments. But that book also offers some, I think, very progressive advice on relationships today as we have officially moved into the Aquarian age. And now that brings us to the 4th book in this series, which is The Mystical Initiations of Intention. So each book actually presents the initiations of one of the 7 spiritual rays, and everything in the material universe is programmed intentions that seek to compensate. Oh, wait a minute, did I skip something? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, here we go. Okay. Higher, wait a minute. My whole... All right, well, let me start over. I apologize. Okay, you'll learn how to lift your intention above the abuse of power, how to escape intellectual intentions, how to escape fear-based programmed responses, which is really important for me, how to discover your original motivation, how to set your highest creative intentions, how to serve life while having inner peace, how to manifest your highest intentions. And it's just... Kim, I just thought, wow, it's right on the money. So that's a lot of stuff that this book is covering. So I would like to know where you would like to start in terms of you being the conduit for this series of books and what you would like to share with the audience about the benefits and the... even just from a personal level with yourself. So I'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, well, this book, it's important to realize that the Ascended Masters have said that we are in a 7-year cycle, which started at the end of 2012. So for each year, 2013 being the first one, the whole planet is going through the initiations of one of the 7 rays.
Okay.
And so this year, 2016, we're going through the initiations of the 4th ray, which is the ray of purity and also intention. And so that means that what you're talking about, the synchronicity, that you have been dealing with a lot of these topics, it's because many spiritual people who are attuned to what's going on, they're already at inner levels or subconscious levels, you're already dealing with these initiations.
Yes.
And that's why the book can be so helpful in this year, because it helps you actually become more conscious of what you're going through, but it also helps you do your work for the planet in terms of purifying the collective consciousness.
Well, I have to say, like the first 3 books were a breeze for me, but this 4th one, you know, the ray of purity and intention, I think probably a lot of people will find this 4th ray very, very challenging, because it's forcing you to look at what, you know, the intentions that you're setting, and whether those intentions are fear-based. You know, I thought it was very appropriate how the book describes, like, a lot of people choose the spiritual path because they're running from something. And if you look at the history of religion, a lot of people chose to become religious because they don't want to burn in hell and the fire, brimstone, and damnation. And then I thought about my own journey here, and at some point I can remember thinking, especially when I found the Ascended Master teachings and I found your work, I was thinking, oh, wow. So now finally there's information and there's all these tools that I can use and kind of find a safe haven against the darkness and all of the craziness in the world, which really is fear-based. And I hadn't really thought about it from that level. But you know, to be honest, that was really what was going on with me on an unconscious level. I wasn't aware that I was running from something, you know, and saying, I need to do this work. I need to do this work because I don't like it here. I don't like this planet, you know, and I want to do whatever it takes to not have to come back here. So I thought that was very powerful for me to take a look at that.
Yeah, and that's where it helps to have a little more overview of these initiations on the 7 rays, because the purpose of the whole series of books is that actually that the Ascended Masters want to take us through a very gradual, systematic course that unlocks our creative power and our creative potential. And the first 3 books are sort of a preparation. They have likened the 7-book series to the figure 8.
Yeah.
Where the lower figure is the first 3 rays, and then the 4th is in the nexus.
Yeah.
And then before you start going into the upper 3 rays, where you're really going to start becoming more conscious of how to precipitate what you want, you have to have your intentions set straight, because if you have too much fear in it, it will actually block the manifestation of what you want to achieve.
That's powerful right there. And I think, you know, that incredible jewel that you just emphasized is very much worth sitting down with this book or the audio tapes to examine whether your intentions are fear-based or love-based. And that takes a lot of, I think, courage and a lot of soul searching to be able to, you know, have that mirror pointed at yourself and go, okay, whatever it takes, I need to keep it real, because it's really not about anything else but being, you know, brutally honest with myself and examining what's working and what is love-based and what is fear-based, and being willing to put behind you the fear-based motivations. And I think that this book offers incredible insights into how to do that self-examination. And I think that the subtitle, The Path to Self-Mastery, is quite accurate, because this book does offer a pretty simple path to self-mastery, but I really think that people are going to have to read it probably more than 3 times to...
Yeah, and it's not a book you just read. You have to do the exercises in it because
Exactly.
they all work together.
Yes.
I think it is very important, like you said, to consider that fear-based thing, because most of us grew up in a traditional religious environment. And if you look at it, you were talking about how they all put into you the fear of hell.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is that their version of salvation really isn't very attractive to most people. So I remember as a child, I was thinking, why would I want to go to heaven and sit on a pink cloud and play the harp?
Right.
I don't like playing the harp. I have no desire to do that.
It's kind of boring.
So it's almost like in order to get you to come into the fold, they try to scare you that you are trying to avoid something that's so bad.
Mm-hmm.
But what the Ascended Masters are saying is that this doesn't work. This isn't what they want. You can't be a full co-creator if you are trying to run away from something. You have to actually discover, what do you want? Why are you on this planet? Why did you choose to come here in the first place?
Yes. And those are questions that I find that people are searching for answers to those questions. So all of you out there who are searching for answers, I would encourage you to start with Kim's first book, The Power of Self, and go through this series and see how everything is going to unfold for you. We'll be back after commercial break with Kim Michaels' message from the Ascended Masters today, and then we will continue with our discussion of this book on self-mastery, The Mystical Initiations of Intention by Kim Michaels. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. You can find us on Facebook at Divine Love Talk, and I am at drparthenia.com. Kim Michaels is at transcendencetoolbox.com.
From traditional Hawaiian weddings and vow renewals to your own unique ceremony, find out why Ka'anapali Weddings is the perfect place to say, I do. Create the memory that will last a lifetime at the place you and your family know and love, Ka'anapali Beach Hotel. Imagine yourself and your loved one just steps away from world-famous Ka'anapali Beach in one of many wedding venues to choose from, including oceanside lawns, tropical gardens, or indoor banquet rooms. With your choice of catering, bar, floral, and musical options, you can make your special day customized just for you. Their wedding specialist will help you plan your dream wedding today. For more information, visit ka'anapaliweddings.com or call 661-0011. Ka'anapali Weddings, the perfect place to say, I do.
Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, Maui's Hawaiian Hotel.
Are you looking to increase the number of calls you receive at your business? Well, CRN Talk is introducing a new way for customers to reach you without having to remember your phone number or web address. Customers simply dial pound 250 from their mobile phones to say your business name. That's it. They'll be directed immediately to your phone line and receive a text message with a link to your website and phone number. It's that easy. It works so well that we're using it in this commercial. To sign up, dial pound 250 and say, help my business. That's pound 250, help my business.
When you really want Italian food, you've got to go to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. If you haven't been to Columbo's, you don't know what you're missing. Delicious food. The steaks on this side are fabulous. The seafood so fresh and flavorful. Columbo's family Italian specialties are Southern California legendary, and the meatballs, the best in the West, North, South, and East. Plus service that's friendly but not fawning, and jazz every night, and it's also affordable. That's what makes Columbo's special, and they make special easy, whether for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That's why when you really want Italian food, you've got to go to Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, making special easy every day. Columbo's, mangia.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. With one phone call, you'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information. It's a free service, so call now.
Call now, 800-704-6182, 800-704-6182.
Okay, we're back with Kim Michaels and his weekly message from the Ascended Masters. Okay, Kim.
Thank you. I am the Ascended Master, Mother Mary, and I will take this opportunity to talk about what it means that the planet for this coming year will be going through the initiations of the fourth ray. We have called it the ray of purity, and you have already seen in many areas of the world how things that have been hidden have come up to the surface where they can no longer remain hidden. But there is also an aspect of the fourth ray that has to do with acceleration. And of course, you will see throughout this year that things will be accelerated greatly, both good and not so good. We have spoken before of the fact that a year can be divided into the 4 quadrants, and that the first quadrants correspond to the identity level, the second to the mental, the third to the emotional, and the fourth to the physical. Therefore, you will see that in the last 3 months of this year, there might be an accelerated return of humankind's karma in terms of certain more dramatic events that will capture people's imagination. Not that there cannot be such events before that, for as I said, things will come to the surface. Now, this will be of special importance for the United States because it is this year in which you are choosing a new president. It is not a good year to be running for president if you have hidden skeletons in the closet, as they say, for they are bound to come out. But what I would like to focus on today is the American people's intention for choosing a president. What is it that you, the spiritual people, desire to see in a president? Do you desire to see someone who is unbalanced, who takes black and white viewpoints, who seems to go for the easy, dramatic solution? Are you interested in a person who is basically a political animal and will say anything required to get elected? Or are you interested in someone who has a higher intention and a higher vision? You may say, as the spiritual people, we are too few to influence the outcome of the election. It is already a given which 2 candidates will be nominated by the 2 parties, and therefore the choice has already been made. And yes, my beloved, this may be true at the physical level, but you are the spiritual people, and we are looking for you to realize how we of the Ascended Masters look at any event. There are many times where we can see that the karmic wheels are turning a certain way, which makes it almost impossible to avoid a certain physical outcome. But we also see that the way that physical outcome is perceived by people can vary a great deal. In other words, the same physical outcome can cause people to learn a small lesson or no lesson, or it can cause them to learn a big lesson. And we would be grateful if you, who are the spiritual people, will focus less on who becomes nominated and who wins the election, but more on what the American people will learn during the process of the election, and what the process of the election will expose, not only about particular candidates, but about the American political situation and political system. For I tell you, there have been mentions already by certain candidates of a new vision that is higher than what most of the mainstream candidates can grasp. And you, who are the spiritual people, can help hold the vision that the American people will come to realize that they want something higher in a president than someone who either caters to a narrow elite or who will say anything in order to capture votes. There is a need for an awakening where you realize that America has lost its vision. It has lost its intention for what it means to be an American. This, of course, is something that Saint Germain has spoken about a great deal, and therefore you can also hold the vision that Saint Germain's message, given now since the 1930s, will become known by a greater number of people.
Wow, thank you so much for that such a timely and profound message. Thank you, Kim Michaels. Thank you, Mother Mary, for going to the heart of the matter. We will be back after commercial break to discuss that very profound dictation from Mother Mary and to continue our discussion about the mystical initiations of intention and the path to self-mastery. You're listening to Divine Love Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant, and joining me is my co-host, Kim Michaels at TranscendenceToolbox.com, and I am at drparthenia.com.
When you really want Italian food, you've got to go to Columbo's. Columbo's Italian Steakhouse and Jazz Club, Colorado Boulevard, Eagle Rock. It's that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. If you haven't been to Columbo's, you don't know what you're missing. Delicious food. The steaks on this side are fabulous. The seafood so fresh and flavorful. Columbo's family Italian specialties are Southern California legendary, and the meatballs, the best in the West, North, South, and East. Plus service that's friendly but not fawning, and jazz every night, and it's also affordable. That's what makes Columbo's special, and they make special easy, whether for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. That's why when you really want Italian food, you've got to go to Columbo's, because it really is that little neighborhood place you wish was down the street from you. Columbo's, making special easy every day. Columbo's, mangia.
Do you drink really pure water? If you drink bottled water, you should know about the bottled water dirty little secrets. Plastic bottles come from oil products. The polycarbonate jugs contain bisphenol A, a synthetic estrogen that's raised health concerns. Bottled water dispensers quickly develop algae and bacteria and should be sanitized regularly. Have you ever cleaned your water dispenser? Are you ingesting algae and bacteria and synthetic estrogen? Here's the good news. Pure Water Science can replace that dirty, outdated bottled water cooler with a high-tech water purification system. The Pure Water Science system features a stainless steel tank that constantly monitors water quality. It guarantees your water is pure. It alerts you when service or filter changes are needed, and the multi-stage purification system removes organic and inorganic contaminants. The patented self-sanitizing feature eliminates algae and bacteria while it adds oxygen to your water, and it costs less than bottled water without the bottled water hassle. No more bottles to lift. Call now, 818-502-4191. Pure Water Science, 818-502-4191.
What are you going to do with your old car? You can try selling it, you could junk it, or you could donate it to Heritage for the Blind. Your car will be towed away for free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats. It doesn't matter if your vehicle runs or not. It will be towed away for free, and you'll be supporting those that need help. Heritage for the Blind is a nonprofit organization that helps the visually impaired live fuller lives. Call right now to donate your car, and as a special thank you for calling, you'll receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to many exciting locations. Call Heritage for the Blind right now, 1-800-785-9618. Donating is easy, and your vehicle is towed away for free. Plus, you'll get a free vacation voucher. Call now, 1-800-785-9618. That's 1-800-785-9618.
Are you nearing eligibility for Medicare benefits? Then you know now is an important time in your life. Medicare benefits can be a complicated puzzle. You don't want to overpay for your Medicare coverage or get the wrong plan. Let Health Markets Insurance Agency help you. With one free phone call, a licensed insurance agent will help you select a Medicare plan that's right for you and your budget. If you're becoming eligible for Medicare, call today and learn how to get the most out of your benefits.
800-793-1960. 800-793-1960.
Health Markets Insurance Agency is the DBA or assumed name of InSphere Insurance Solutions, Inc., which is an authorized insurance agency in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. Not all agents are licensed to sell all products. Service and product availability varies by state.
Call 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960. 800-793-1960.
Okay, we're back with more of Divine Love Talk. And Kim, I have to start off with that amazing message from Mother Mary, because at the end of the day, that is exactly what is on the minds of the American people. There is grave concern about the outcome of this election. And the actual dictation covered the angst that the American people are feeling right now, being caught between a rock and a hard place, because Bernie Sanders clearly has the higher vision and has the track record.
You mean being caught behind a hill in a Trump?
There you go. And so, the people, the spiritual people and the people with a higher vision, are just feeling like, okay, so what is the point when, Thomas Jefferson said that, our presidents are selected. That's why they have the Electoral College. He said that the selection of the American president was too important to leave it in the hands of the people. And so there's that feeling of what is the point at all. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that Mother Mary addressed that from a much higher perspective, in terms of, it's so true that America has lost its vision, has lost its way, having just come back from Europe and Morocco and being away for a little over a month. The attitudes that the rest of the world have about the American people, I really couldn't defend America being from America because it was all true. And I just have to hope, because a lot of people are saying, oh my God, if Trump gets elected, we got to leave the country. And
that's, I guess, what Mother Mary wants people not to do.
Yeah.
Because, I remember this from myself in my younger days when I was more new to the spiritual path. I was much more focused on the outer things. Mm-hmm. And what I have really realized, especially in the last few years, is that the Ascended Masters are not nearly as concerned about this.
Yeah.
Whether this person is elected president or not, because their whole purpose is to raise our consciousness and help us see what we can't see. And so even a person who's not necessarily the ideal candidate from a spiritual perspective can actually make something so obvious that people finally wake up and say, this just doesn't work.
Well, and that was an amazingly cogent point that Mother Mary made, because it is being exposed and it is becoming more and more obvious to the people that, the corporations run our government, that our votes don't matter, that our voices don't count, and that, the people that are in power really don't care. When you look at the gas leak that finally got capped, here in Los Angeles, I mean, how is it that it could go on for months like that? And then it magically got capped after all of these lawsuits were filed, in one day. So they can do whatever they want to do when there's enough pressure, put upon them. But, the people that are running things just won't do anything until enough people get together and say, all right, we've had enough. And I think that that's kind of a lot of the stuff that the Ascended Masters are saying, is that we have to get to that point. And I heard that in your book, The Mystical Initiations of Intention, is that we just have to get to this point where we set our intention. You said in the book somewhere about, I've just had enough of, dealing with people like this or situations like that. and setting a higher intention for yourself. And clearly, the American people have to set a higher intention. But until they're willing to look at the truth of our political system and how corrupt it is and how it's bought and paid for by corporations, then I don't think anything, we're going to be able to create a higher vision.
No, I agree with that. I think there's a lot of issues there, but I think it mainly is that people have become too passive, and that
Yes.
I think is true for all of the democratic countries.
Yeah.
We've almost taken for granted that now we've gotten democracy, and therefore it's just going to always be there, but we don't realize how it's been very cleverly and very gradually undermined by
Insidiously.
a
Yeah.
power elite that
Mhm.
simply takes over.
Yeah.
And I think one of the really big issues in America is we always claim it's the richest country in the world.
Oh, yeah, right.
But that's because we have the most very, very rich people, and you also have the greatest percentage of poor people
Yes.
of any of the developed countries. And you
Mhm.
don't have health care.
No, exactly.
And, there are countries in Europe who can give universal health care,
Mhm.
and they can afford it.
Well,
So
and-
it's not impossible.
Well, that's very cogent, and coming back from Europe and seeing, the progressiveness of the European Union and the fact that countries like Switzerland are voting on a basic income of 2,000 euros a month just to give to every citizen, because that's just to create a decent standard of living, whether you work or not. Whatever you want to do with it, that's up to you. Now, that makes perfect sense to me, but you say that here in America, they're like, oh, you're a socialist, communist, or whatever. And
Yeah, and I think that's what really is missing, and I think that's what Trump represents, the
Yeah.
name calling,
Yeah.
where there's always a label you can put on.
Mhm.
And I've heard so many people who they won't say public health care, they will say socialized medicine.
Yes.
But really what is happening is that once you have a public health care system, the government has to put a ceiling on what the big drug companies can charge.
Yeah, and
So you get cheaper health care.
there you go. And
By
what's really interesting here is, now that we've got the Obamacare, which I think a lot of us were thinking, oh, this is going to be great. But at the end of the day, I found out that from one of the insurance companies that at the end of every year, they can raise their rates as they get to decide, how much they're going to raise their rates. So for people on fixed income and for poor people, you're caught between a rock and a hard place, because the IRS will fine you $2,000 if you don't have the insurance, and then so you can't afford not to have it. But then the insurance companies, on the other hand, they're raising the premiums however high they want to raise them.
But the reality you have in the United States is that you have a healthcare system where it is so expensive to go to the hospital
Yes,
that most ordinary people cannot afford it.
they just won't go.
No, and
they
and
can't.
so you have a healthcare system that's not of the people, by the people, and for the people, but you have one that's for the elite because they
Yes.
have so much money. They don't care. It doesn't matter to them.
Exactly. And plus you've got the corporate welfare with the elected officials, where they get the best health care for life, and they're getting $250,000.
Right.
So yeah, they don't care. So
But see, what you have in Europe is that they say it shouldn't matter how much money you make or what your father's last name is,
Mhm.
you should get the same health care as everybody else.
Exactly. And people should have a basic standard of living. There shouldn't be all of this homelessness, with
Mhm.
mothers and children that are out in the streets and living in their cars. And
And I think that's the biggest problem right now, because that inequality between rich and poor is growing
and it's going to
rapidly in the United States.
And I think that's where Mother Mary's dictation was so powerful, because the light is shining, and people are, people that I never thought would see through all of this are seeing through it. But at the same time, you've also got these neoconservatives that, see such great wonder and hope in Trump, who has these instant solutions that don't go to the heart or the root of the problem. It's just like, oh, here, I got a quick solution. You don't want immigrants? Let's build a wall wall. Okay, but
Yeah, that I had to laugh at that one. I mean, does she think they don't have boats in Mexico?
clearly, and what about the Berlin Wall? It came down. The
Yeah.
Great Wall of China, didn't last. So it's like those kind of solutions, when you're not looking at history, it's not a real viable solution. But
No.
But I guess for people that are just looking for an instant Band-Aid, it appeals to them. So I think that this is going to be an important election like no other election, just in terms of hopefully opening up people's eyes. And as one of the spiritual people and one of the forerunners for the Aquarian Age, I really appreciated that dictation and holding this vision and setting a new intention for Americans, because sometimes I just look at the things that are going on and I just shake my head and I go,
But see, that is what I think is the biggest problem with the whole New Age spiritual movement, is that too many people are actually, they're reacting with fear.
Yes.
And they are saying, oh, I'll just have to go to Canada. But they don't realize that it's important you're in the United States because you're holding a spiritual balance and you can hold a vision for the changes that are going to happen. And it isn't a matter of who's elected president, like Mother Mary said, but what happens in the minds of the American people? What becomes obvious? What do they see? And you look at the, like you're talking about, the neoconservatives, their message is 100% fear-based.
yes,
When they talk about we can't afford public health care, completely fear-based.
yes. And it's so not true, because
Yeah.
they can afford everything else and all the corporate welfare for the corporations and the power elite. But anytime a bit of money goes to the common people, we can't afford that, and it's such a tiny fraction.
No, but I mean, I think a lot of the resistance to public health care comes from the big companies that are making money on
Sure.
the current healthcare
Absolutely.
situation and don't want to give it up.
And it's the power elite who own those companies. So it's all this, it's all the same thing. And I think honestly that, and hopefully the American people will see that it really doesn't matter whether you have a Republican or a Democrat in office. They all work for the major corporations and they don't work for the people. They just give us this perception that, we do have two parties, but it's essentially the same party pushing their own agenda, which is for the power elite.
Yeah, and we've actually talked about this before on the show, that there needs to be an alternative where I think the spiritual people need to hold a vision that you open up to allow more parties, because a candidate who has any kind of vision can't be nominated by the two mainstream parties.
At all, because it's all rigged, and that's the thing that is so hard for the American people to
Well,
wrap
I don't know that it's rigged, but it's just that you can control the outcome of an election by controlling which choices the people have.
Yes, and
And
that
if you
is-
only have two choices that, as you said, basically stand for the same kind of politics,
It's a
what
setup.
choice
I mean, I don't know what else to call it other than it's rigged. It's set up in favor of the people with the money and power who make the decisions. So
Yeah.
maybe I need a better term than that, but
Yeah, because to me that sounded like cheating, and I don't know that there is that. But they don't have to cheat. Why do they have to cheat? It doesn't matter.
it's set up that way.
Yeah.
To work in their favor. So at the end of the day, the American people do need a higher vision. And, going back to your book, the mystical initiations of intention, we really need to decide what intention we want to hold, or whether we're going to go into this place of fear and despair. With the outcome.
That is right on the money, and that's what the spiritual people need to decide. Can we raise our intention beyond the fear? And that's what this book talks about a lot. It really goes into it. And I was amazed when I received that book, because the first three books in the series are kind of like normal spiritual books that tells you these are the initiations. But this one, I mean, Serapis Bey pulls no punches
At
here.
all.
But he's not strict. But he's just so straightforward and
Yeah.
says, this is a matter of what kind of relationship do you want with me
Yeah.
as a teacher, and
Yeah.
what do you want to do with your creative powers? And I was just totally impressed by this, because I can see that this is a big step up, like you also said, and it will be a difficult book for many people.
Well, and I think just honestly, I found like the first third of it, I think a lot of people are going to be challenged to sit through it because it's like holding the spotlight on you, and you've got to be willing to seriously look at yourself and the truth about, what you believe, you're saying about yourself, but what is really going on a subconscious level in terms of what your motivation is for why you're doing what you're doing. And I think it's really important for us to continually examine our motivations.
Yeah, and the really big dividing line that I found was that for many, many years when I was on the spiritual path, I did what Serapis Bey addresses in the book. I was hiding things from myself.
Absolutely.
That I simply wasn't ready to look at in myself. And I can see that what Serapis Bey is saying is there does come a point where it just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
If you really want to step up, if you really want to be a co-creator, and if you really want to bring a better future for this planet, you can't hide things from yourself or from your spiritual teacher. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and especially for people like myself, I pride myself in keeping it real and being authentic and honest with myself and everybody else with what I do. And what really hit me in this book is how profoundly I was traumatized by the false accusations of, the power elite at the college where I was, and how, I was fine until I started reacting to it, until I felt the need to defend myself against those accusations. You lose your creative power when you move into this need to protect something that you hold dear. And
that's what Serapis Bey addresses in the book too, how we all had this original trauma when we first embodied on Earth, and we were exposed to the fallen consciousness that did accuse us.
Yes.
And that caused us to react.
That is so powerful. Oh my goodness, this all went so fast, but this was very, very relevant and important. We're going into commercial break as I'm talking to my co-host Kim Michaels about his amazing book, The Mystical Initiations of Intention, The Path to Self-Mastery. You want to run out and get, all of the books in the series, but start with The Power of Self. And we'll be back wrapping this up after commercial break. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant. You're listening to Divine Love Talk on CRN. I'm at drparthenia.com, and Kim Michaels is at transcendencetoolbox.com. And spell out Dr. D-O-C-T-O-R.
Come to Angelo's and Vinci's Ristorante in Fullerton, California for authentic family-style Italian dinners. Come to Angelo's and Vinci's and celebrate your party or event in one of our festive banquet rooms. Angelo's and Vinci's, Fullerton, California, 550 North Harbor Boulevard. Named the Orange County Hot List Top 5 Italian restaurant for 7 years in a row. And a Top 10 pizza restaurant by Gale, featuring traditional and award-winning pizzas. Offering Sunday champagne brunch from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m., just $16.95. Choose from over 20 items, plus create your own personal omelet. Delicious lunches, including our express lunch buffet, $8.95 with over 15 items. And dinner 7 days a week. Getting married? Angelo's and Vinci's won this year's Wedding Wire Couples Choice Award. You can talk to our experienced staff of wedding coordinators. We treat you as guests at your own wedding reception. It's all at Angelo's and Vinci's Ristorante at 550 North Harbor Boulevard in Fullerton, California. Call 714-879-4022. 714-879-4022.
Trying to sell your old car? Instead, donate your vehicle to Heritage for the Blind. Pickup is free, and your donation is tax deductible. Just call 1-800-785-9618. Heritage for the Blind accepts cars, vans, trucks, and boats, whether they run or not. Call right now and receive a free 3-day vacation voucher to over 50 locations. Call 1-800-785-9618. Donate your car today. That's 1-800-785-9618.
I am a non-attorney spokesperson. Attention men who've taken Androgel or any other testosterone therapy products. Androgel or other low-T products have been linked to heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism, deep vein thrombosis, even death. Scientific studies indicate indicate that the use of testosterone therapy products may double a man's risk of heart attack. If you or a loved one took Androgel or a testosterone therapy product and suffered from a heart attack, stroke, pulmonary embolism, deep vein thrombosis, or any other cardiac event, you might be entitled to financial compensation. You have rights, and you need to let us fight for your rights. And you pay no fees unless we win. So call the Tort Attorneys right now. 800-557-7921. 800-557-7921. That's 800-557-7921. Cases may be referred to participating law firms in your jurisdiction.
Attention CRN listeners in Arizona. Now all of your mortgage needs can be handled by Advance Capital Mortgage. Looking for a reverse mortgage, refinance, new purchase, or just to streamline your FHA and HARP? Our rates are great with dozens of lending solutions. Call Advance Capital Mortgage, 855-437-8421. That's 855-437-8421. 855-437-8421. MBO 91903, MLS 716936.
Okay, we're back, wrapping this up on Divine Love Talk with my co-host Kim Michaels and his book, The Mystical Initiations of Intention. Thank you so much, Kim, for that dictation from Mother Mary and your willingness to discuss the whole political situation, because right now that's what's on everybody's mind here in America, and it did need to be discussed. And you know what? I'm going to take back that apology that I had, because during the Bush election, it was rigged. I mean, we were shown, the American people, that the election was stolen. So, yes.
Yes, but again, did it really matter? Because again, can the two mainstream parties produce a president that can really change the country?
Exactly. Of course, not those two parties. I don't think that they're capable of producing that.
No.
But the American people are going to have to make a decision. You know, do we want to allow our lives to be controlled by major corporations who are motivated basically by money, power, and control, or an alternative that has the best interest of the people at heart? Because, you know, at the end of the day, we got to decide, do we matter? Okay. Are we important? Does our voice, matter? And
well, see, if you go back to the founding fathers, right? Their background was that they saw how the system was in Europe back then.
Yes.
Where the king and the noblemen virtually owned the greater part of the population.
Exactly.
And they wanted to set up, and certainly Saint Germain, who sponsored the early American patriots and the founding fathers, wanted to set up a nation where the people would be in charge.
Exactly.
But what has happened is that the corporations and the big money interests have created a new version of this elitist system. And the American people need to wake up to that and realize this isn't going to work.
Yep. And again, I think that this series of books will help people, in particular this fourth one, The Mystical Initiations of Intention. And I want to say to the really serious spiritual people who are reading these books, don't give up on this book. It's a tough one, but it's worth it. You know, hang in there. Because at some points, Kim, I was kind of gritting my teeth and going, okay. let me just listen it with an open heart and an open mind. And sure enough, when I would just surrender to the truth versus the resistance of my ego, then I could receive the gift. So I'll say to those of you, just receive the gift of truth, and it's a beautiful thing at the end of the day when you can allow that.
Yeah, and once you have your intention raised beyond fear and fear of the ego, it's so liberating.
Wow.
Because it's like now you can relate. I found that I could not only relate to the Ascended Masters in a more straightforward manner, but I could actually start relating to myself in a more straightforward manner.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you can't hide yourself from you. You have to live with yourself. And that has always been important to me, to be able to live with myself and to be able to live in integrity. And so no matter how tough it gets to be able to do that and to stay in that place, that is where I choose to be. And I would challenge everyone else who is on this path to make it about being to thine own self be true. And that was Shakespeare, but our beloved Saint Germain who was saying that. So
yeah, and I think it really is time to go beyond pretend spirituality and pretend politics.
Hello. How beautiful is that? Thank you so much, Kim, for joining us today and for all of the work that you do for humanity, and in particular for those of us who are on a serious spiritual path. And I want everybody to get out there and get those books. Start with The Power of Self, and then keep reading the Mystical Initiation series, and powerful stuff there. And thank you for joining us. We're now Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. Download the app for CRN, and you can listen to us on the go and on Facebook at Divine Love Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Parthenia Grant. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we're going to be talking about how you can clear emotional clutter out of your life. That's pretty powerful stuff. So we'll see you next week.
Which is most appropriate because that was your theme.
Are you tired of hearing your favorite talk radio show sound like this? What if you could hear your favorite shows in crystal clear, high-definition digital sound? Well, with CRN Digital Talk Radio's 6 channels of high-definition radio, you can now hear all of your favorite hosts like you've never heard them before in CRN HD. The difference is amazing. Catch your favorite political hosts like Dennis Prager, Tom Hartman, Barry Farber, and so many more. Entertainment and lifestyle programming like The Robert Conrad Show, The What's Cooking Show, and The What's Cooking on Wine Show, all in true CRN HD audio. Sports, business, travel, food, wine, politics, there is something